Right, so the big news of the week this week came probably courtesy of Cinema Blend and IMDb. So the big thing here was that we've got two big studios that decided to come together in 2020, and they're joining forces to bring us a Kong versus Godzilla film. Now, whether or not that's actually going to be any good over the last few years, well, I say few years, probably about the last 50 years, there's been a massive dispute over whether or not anyone can actually get the rights to publish within certain countries. So you've got Japan, who have overall rights to the Godzilla franchise, but you also have Universal and Warner Bros, who have distribution rights over King Kong and Godzilla. So whether or not anything's going to come, at the moment it's scheduled to be for 2020, but who knows? What do you think about this?
I think it's a really interesting project. It's obviously been done before a long time ago. But with the capabilities that kind of the studios have now and the power and the money, I'm not surprised this has happened. With the big buzz of Batman vs Superman, two iconic characters coming together and fighting is already getting people very excited, mouth-watering at the fact of them fighting. And to bring together these two iconic characters who are probably more iconic in a sense that they've been around longer in King Kong and Godzilla, for them to fight on the big screen is going to be a massive epic film, and everyone knows that. Everyone is interested in King Kong, everyone's interested in Godzilla, but whether they can work that out and they can pull it off, that's another thing to think about. But you've got to admit, it is mouth-watering to think that you're going to have King Kong and Godzilla on the big screen backed by these two massive distributors and the companies as well. It's exciting, but like I said, can they pull it off? They can't really even pull off a decent King Kong or Godzilla movie without it being a tiniest bit disappointing, in the sense of Godzilla that came out last year, which was ultimately quite disappointing. So it's one I'm going to be looking forward to, but I'm not going to get my hopes up too much. It looks like Hulk has been confirmed to be in space in Asgard.
Ah, yes, absolutely. I've heard about
this.
What do you think of that? Well, the rumours have been going for a little while. I think it's because most people are kind of they're worried about the next time they're going to see Mark Ruffalo on screen as the Hulk. But whether or not, I certainly am a lot happier that they don't have it as an independent film. I think if it was independent, then we would really start to struggle, because then you'd then go back to quite dodgy ground when you consider, some of the previous versions of the Hulk hasn't exactly gone well. I do like the idea, though, that you've kind of got little groups teaming up, because I think Marvel are in the odd stages now. They're kind of involved in what was essentially the resurgence of a comic book film, but what with all the other directors recently coming out and saying it's much like the Western genre, it's not going to be around forever. I do think now that Marvel have got that more in place, they've kind of, with the latest change around with all the films they've got, where, we've obviously now seen a Ms. Marvel film get dropped in favour of an Ant-Man 2, which I don't think most of us really expected. Black Panther's now been moved before Infinity War, is it after now, isn't it? It's been moved around so that the phases has been changed. I think because of that movement, I think Marvel now have that in mind, and I think by now grouping people together, it allows them to almost tell more of a story, but also, I suppose, increase the level of excitement that they're wanting to get from their Marvel brand.
I think it's an incredibly clever move for Marvel putting Hulk in, because out of the Avengers who've all got their own solo movies, Thor, for me, is the weakest. I'm not saying I don't like the movies, because I think the first film is great. It's really, really good. Dark World wasn't great, but I'm still a fan. The inclusion of more Loki was a great shout by Marvel to do that with the additional reshoots towards the end. Putting Hulk in gives it a whole new dynamic and brings in a whole lot more people to watch it. That could be potentially a massive film now, compared to if you're not having Hulk in it. That might not have been one of the most popular Marvel films that will come out in recent time. But having Hulk in it is really interesting, and again, like I said, it's a very clever move for Marvel, because they know that's going to bring in so much more money, because people are interested in Hulk.
I do think it's a very interesting prospect, and I think it's something that it's a new stage for Marvel. How they're going to explain, for instance, where they're going to be. Obviously, Ragnarok is going to take place probably somewhere else other than Asgard, because to kind of say that Hulk is now on Asgard is a bit of a weird transition. You can kind of get away with obviously Thor coming to Earth, but not necessarily someone going up to Asgard. So, we've got stuff definitely to look out for there. I imagine over the next, Civil War is obviously going to have something to do with it. Or we're going to see something in Civil War that is going to link to it. But whether or not anything of any really interest, I personally think the scene at the end of Civil War is going to link to Loki. I don't think it's going to link to anything else. I think we've seen too much of Thanos recently in the end credit scenes, so I really think they're going to focus on, much like we did at the end of Captain America, where we saw Thor's hammer, or Iron Man 2 actually, I think that was.
Yeah.
Where you see all these different transitions of the actual other characters. I think now it's kind of be quite nice to see that happen again with like the third stage of Thor, and Civil War obviously had a couple of nods and that, so I think it's going to be quite exciting.
So, moving on, Die Hard prequel, what are your thoughts?
I personally think it's a bad idea. I still can't get over Jai Courtney, to be perfectly honest. He's tragic. To be fair, is the best way to describe it. Is everything that I seem to see him in, he just seems to be annoying, and the fact that he's in Suicide Squad next year, which is another conversation altogether, is just quite frankly depressing. The fact that they've decided to make some sort of prequel to Die Hard, I think, is just, again, it's terrible. It's like if you say for instance, were to look Pan recently. Well, no one gives a crap about a Pan, like a Pan beginning story. No one cares. You're kind of happy that with Neverland, and you're happy with all that lot. Same with Die Hard. You've got John McClane. You had a good introduction with him in Die Hard 1. How they're still wanting to have Bruce Willis involved.
Yeah.
How?
I have no idea. I mean, the problem that they've got already in announcing a prequel is that there's most likely not going to be Bruce Willis as John McClane, obviously.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, because he's very old now. But the Die Hards that have come out in recent years, 4 and 5, haven't been great. 6 was pretty damn awful. 4 was okay, it was quite enjoyable, it wasn't too bad, it was passable. But the problem is, even with Bruce Willis in as John McClane, especially in the last film, it didn't seem to work. Bruce Willis has lost that, for me, that movie star status, who's huge, who kind of commands the screen with his presence. He doesn't have that anymore. And I feel like even if you don't have a Die Hard movie about Bruce Willis as John McClane, it's going to suffer massively.
Yeah.
So there's no point.
Yeah.
No one's interested in an origin story of John McClane.
Yeah.
You're thrown in, like you said, in Die Hard 1 with this kind of character who is rough. He's rough around the edges. He's not your regular cop. He's got issues, but he loves his job. That's all we need to know. There's no need to know what happened to him before. It's just another cash cow project, hoping to bleed out the tiniest bit of money from a franchise they can.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Talking about Pan before, it's been a huge flop. It's not took any money.
Yeah.
It's got a huge budget, $150 million it took to make, and it took about 25 million max. I think it probably took a lot less than that as well in America, which is disastrous. So awful start. If you don't know much about box office, America is by far the biggest market. So if it's not going to make nowhere near as half of the actual budget, it's not going to make nowhere near as much money worldwide to kind of make up for it, unless it does incredibly well in China, which I don't think it will.
No.
Normally,
we were saying there's no interest there. There's no interest in a Pan origin story. As much as you've got Hugh Jackman in it, who does, like, in my eyes, he saves it a bit. You do, unfortunately, have some very questionable Mr. Garrett himself in the film that just kind of lets it down. And I don't know. I just feel that it just is a bit.
Is there a point that the film's awful though? Is it? The Pan's not an awful film. It's
just a pointless film. It's a pointless film.
Bang average. I mean, we go 2.5 out of 5. It's kind of bang average.
Yeah.
A little less than bang average. I mean, there's points where it looks spectacular. You can see that there's been a lot of money put into it. Hugh Jackman's pretty decent. Levi Miller, who plays Pan, the young boy, is really good as a newcomer. It's his first film.
It's just filled with pointless people. 150 million of that budget has gone on Cara Delevingne's like 10-second moment in it. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. You've got, you know, Rooney Mara, who's pretty much just, you know, she's away from what she can normally play.
Or is there much point having her character Tiger Lily in the film? Looking back on it now, there's not much. I don't think there's much point of having her in that. And maybe they're not the reason behind the bomb. Sometimes there's never really damn right out reasons why it has been. But it's interesting because Warner Bros. Having quite a difficult year already, with Jupiter Ascending being one of the biggest bombs. Pan has as well. Man from U.N.C.L.E. back in August was a bit of a failure. It hasn't took its money back. And they're also having trouble with their new project in Tarzan, the live-action adaptation that they're doing with Margot Robbie. They've had massive issues. David Yates has been directing it, and they showed footage that they had already of Tarzan to the big executives, and they absolutely hated it. And they've completely overrun. David Yates has moved on to his next project, the Harry Potter spin-off. Fantastic Beasts.
Which just so happens to be another Warner Bros. Project.
Another Warner Bros. Project. So at the moment, this another troubled Warner Bros. Project is nowhere near finished. They've got a massive stellar cast, big names, with no director at the moment, and a budget of $180 million already. So it's another Warner Bros. Project that's in a lot of trouble. Moving on though, the Hateful Eight, which is Tarantino's new movie coming out. I think it's coming out in the start of next year here in the UK and the end of this year in the US. He said that he's got 2 different versions for the Hateful Eight.
It's come out about midweek, didn't it? This news.
He's got a longer version for the people who are going to watch it in film. So he's kind of treating the people who are going to watch it in independent cinema, showing it on actual film. And the people who are going to be watching the big multiplexes, in his own words, are going to be presented with a shorter version by 12 minutes. Again, that's another kind of hit back from Tarantino and sticking to his guns by treating people who are going to pay the money to watch it in film.
Christopher Nolan is going to love him.
Well, they already love each other anyway because they're both passionate about preserving film. But knowing there's going to be an extra 12 minutes, which is going to take it over 3 hours, is that something you'd be willing to pay to watch an extra 12 minutes in film?
I don't know. You never know. I mean, I think with a Tarantino film, you have to be prepared to sit down and watch a film because he's very much a film director. You know, he knows where he's going. He knows what he's doing. I mean, I love Tarantino's stuff. I think it's amazing. His art of conversation is fantastic. You know, how much can you really add to a film in 12 minutes? I mean, I know some people would say probably quite a lot. You just have to look, for instance, at the Days of Future Past, the Rogue edit. That completely changed the film. You know, and that was only essentially about another, 15 minutes worth of added footage. So
it felt more complete, didn't it? Once we watched that.
I do think though, as a filmmaker, Tarantino won't have the risk of it affecting the story that he's trying to tell. I think it will just be added content in terms of, perhaps longer action scenes or longer conversations and things like that. So whether or not I'm happy to sit down and watch it because I think it's going to be fantastic. But whether or not it's going to add or take away from the experience is something entirely altogether. I will still go for the 30 mil. I love it. So, I think it's one to be seen. How about you?
As you know, I'm a massive Tarantino fan. So the thought of having even additional 12 minutes for me is huge. And to watch a Tarantino film on DVD or on Blu-ray is very satisfying because the work there is great. I love watching his work. Every single one I've not enjoyed any of his work. So the thought of potentially seeing a film that's in the west, it's kind of a western in the winter time with loads of snow, it's going to look absolutely superb on a regular screen, let alone on film in independent cinema. So I think the whole point of this is that he's trying to promote film again. He's trying to get it back out there. He's trying to get people aware how amazing kind of film is and how it can look compared to digital. So I will be trying to see both versions if I can. If there's much difference, I might prefer one to the other.
Yeah.
It's going to be Tarantino's longest film to date, and I think the longer the better. Tarantino is one of the masters of conversation.
Yeah.
And character development and character stories. So the thought, of watching a 3-hour Tarantino movie in film is
mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling, but it's gonna be fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to it. So that's the roundup of the news of this week. It's been a big week for news, but please do subscribe to our channel, like our video as well. If you do agree or disagree with any of our comments on the news at the moment or anything that we have said in this video, please don't hesitate. Do talk to us. We will reply. We'd like to hear what you think of our thoughts. Again, look out for another video coming up in the next week, where we'll be most likely rounding up the news of next week. So it's a goodbye from us.
See ya.
See ya.